In this video, we are going to break down Chris Lake's track Chemistry off of his amazing album Chemistry. Now, the reason why we want to break this down is because so many producers want to know, what am I missing in my tracks? How do I tell the story through the arrangement? So the whole point of this is to ask, well, what are the top tracks and producers doing like Chris Lake? And all we have to do is look and listen, really. And then we're going to look at how can I apply those techniques in my own tracks to make frickin' bangers. I go off on the dance floor and make tracks as good as what Chris Lake is doing. And that's what we're going to dive into. Some really cool things that Chemistry is doing specifically. Number one is the simplicity of the confidence and the reliance on the hooks in this track. That's just such a big point to make, so we'll dive into that. Some other two kind of nerdy things that we're definitely going to dive into, as simple as this track is on the other side of the spectrum, some interesting nerdy things like progressive elevation. Sounds really cool, and it is. But this is how Chris Lake keeps the drops getting more and more exciting every single time they come around with just the first few seconds in the drops. He's doing something really cool there. Definitely worth breaking down and using in your own tracks. And then finally, he pulls the bait and switch. And this can be a dangerous trap for many producers, but Chris Lake pulls it off in a massively epic way. And we're going to break down how he makes it work. So let's frickin' dive in. As always, we're looking at arrangement. So what we're going to do is just kind of, what is arrangement? Arrangement is basically how the hooks and the groove. So hooks are things like vocals and sound design, and groove are the drums and the bass. So we're looking at how the hooks and groove develop over time, because arrangement is all about storytelling. And the two main characters in a track for tech house or whatever is hooks and groove. And so we want to see how those kind of develop over time. So let's start mapping it out, kind of hooking what am I trying to say? Trying to map it out, the main characters, and just seeing how they develop, how they get exciting, how Chris Lake builds up the moments, makes epic moments, and makes an awesome track. So we can do it too. Here we go. And we'll start at the intro, and this is just going to be an introduction to the beat. So it's also where the DJs is just mixing in, but just to get a feel for what's there in the beginning so that we can make sense of how it develops later on. All right, cool. And nothing too crazy here. Already some syncopation going on here. And let's see. Something interesting to kind of point out that I never really noticed until right now is right here. Interesting. This whole thing is dry, and then the second bars, you're going to get some syncopated hits in here that have a reverb on it. Watch. There's no reason for that. I'm literally just observing it and pointing it out. Okay, now we're working down into a new section. And one of the things, I'm just going to make like an edit map here. An edit map is just tracking these kinds of things, which is like, edits are technically for me, like at the end of 8 bars, if you're just going to get rid of it, you're just getting rid of the low end in some way, either through removing the kick, the bass, or high passing the kick and bass. And edits, what they really do is they just prepare the listener for some sort of change coming up in the next part. Or they just kind of break things up to kind of restart. But here what we're getting is just a little bit of a low pass on the drums. And what that's doing is it's settling the energy. When you're taking away the high information, things get less exciting. So you're settling the energy as we're going to move into the intro break right here. All right. Cool. And then we get the vocals. So this is going to be LP down. All right, and then here we're going to get a vocal. So we'll do Vox main. And let's go. Darkest place I've known, right on the edge of losing hope. Man, that's a great sounding vocal. I really like that sound of that. Darkest place I've known. Just the highs from the whispered performance, and then just the EQ, the saturation on there's nothing crazy, but it just has that nice, I don't want to say grit, and I don't want to say sparkle, but it has a nice grit and sparkle. Okay, and obviously there's some chords in there. Let's see what else is going on though. So what do we have? So this is just basically low pass down, and we've got kick, hat, clap. We have everything. It's just low pass. And then we have the main vocal. And another thing about this is that it has a pickup melody. A pickup melody is a melody in a vocal that begins before the downbeat. And some good examples of this would be like Gorgon City's Voodoo, John Summit and Gorgon City's Is Everybody Having Fun? And the way that those tracks use a pickup melody is really cool, because right before a drop in that kind of payoff moment area, they'll use that pickup melody for the vocal payoff, and that pulls you into the drop. Now, Chris Lake has a melody here with a pickup in it, but he doesn't actually really use that in the same way, because these drops are mostly centered around like this vocal chop melody. But I just want to point that out, that, his vocal has a pickup melody, and there's different ways that you can really make use of that. And Chris Lake's track here is not a good example of how one of the ways you can make use of it, but that's okay. All right, moving on. That said, Chris Lake's track is a beautiful example of many other things, which we're going to see. All right, so we got some chords here. Things are open. The chords are low pass to create massive space up top for the vocal, right? Okay, let's say here's the vocal. This is the main hook of the track. Kind of like I would even like, this is one of the main hooks. This is like the break hook, and then we have the vocal chop melody, which is definitely the main hook. But everything comes from the hook, right? So even the EQ, the decision to filter these chords down really low, is a decision that wasn't made in isolation, right? It's made in the context of their overall mix, and it's made because the vocal is the priority here. So we're not going to have all this chord stuff getting in the way of the vocal, especially for the first time that the listener hears it. We're trying to create as much space as possible so that vocal is as crystal clear as possible, so that the listener can hear it, listen to the words, listen to the melody, remember it. Things aren't getting in the way, decreasing the cognitive load, all that stuff, right? Just not making the listener work harder than they need to just hear the main thing. All right, here we go. So these chords are very slowly opening, just to give a sense of forward momentum. Otherwise, I shouldn't even say otherwise. I was just going to say otherwise it would make this section feel static, and that's just not true. It's not true, because what the listener is hearing here, what I'm hearing here, what you're hearing here, is we're listening for the first time the vocal unfolding. Right? So like, we don't really know these lyrics over here, but then really slowly underneath, these chords are just slowly opening to move us forward in the track, just a little bit, very subtly. Hear that? So here's the beginning. Very filtered chords, here's the end. Just a little bit more open, just a little bit more open. All right, here we go. All right, so now these are really opening. Okay, so this is an HPLP, so high pass, low pass. This is going to be more high pass. Dang it. I guess I'll go like that. So this is still low pass, but more high pass. We're stepping down, okay? Okay, think about this. Here's two concepts you can think about. Things happening in a discrete step-by-step way, or things happening in an evolving way or in a gradual way, right? Discrete step-by-step way or gradual evolving way. I'm going to say it one more time, all right? Things happening in a discrete step-by-step way or a gradual evolving way. And we have an example of that right here. And this actually comes up a lot, almost in every track. But like, if you listen to the drums here, they're pretty static. They're low passed, right? They're not changing very much. But then what happens here is they step down. There is a discrete step down. All right. And so you're going from like a relatively high pass groove right here to a more high pass groove. Removing the low end even more settles the energy even more. So right here, right, we got a full kick. We have a discrete step down into the drums right here with both a high pass and a low pass. And then here we're stepping down again, a discrete step down in the drums with more high passing. All right, those discrete moves here, discrete step down, are a way to stage the settling of the energy. Extremely important to have those concepts because you'll hear it a lot, okay? The second thing is other things evolving. And a cool thing here is, I'm just maybe going to write this down. So we have the discrete step down drums. And we have slow, gradual, evolving. These two concepts, and it's going to be the synths or the chords. All right, I'm just going to remember to review. That rhymes. All right, cool. We'll just go like this. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. There we go. And then these chords are slowly evolving. And they're evolving up, right? So the drums are stepping down in energy, and then the chords are kind of gradually evolving up in energy. And that's cool, right? And that's pretty common. But and so you have this kind of downward energy and this upward energy. Get ready for this one. Contradictory energy movement, it's true, but that's not what I want to draw your attention to. I want to draw your attention to the moves, which are discrete steps down here, or just discrete steps, and then gradual evolution, right? And so that's typically where you would do something like that, like on the drums, making those discrete steps. And that happens a lot over here as you're making long moves in terms of bringing energy levels down. Is a lot of the ways that you'll bring energy levels down in a track is through discrete steps down, a lot of times in the drums, like what you're seeing here. And then you have more of gradual evolving moves with other things like synths and cutoffs movements and all that stuff, right? Now, a way that you can also have both in the drums is you can have the discrete steps down, but imagine that you also have the filter gradually moving down, right? So let's say you go into here, one high pass, and then more high pass. So high passing to a higher cutoff, right? So those are discrete moves. But then the low pass, let's say, is slowly moving down. So that's a way that you can have the discrete steps down through the high passing, and then you can have the gradual evolution going down into, with the low pass. Now, that said, I'm not saying any things of what you should do, quote, right? I'm just pointing out concepts, like for you to kind of start categorizing what you're hearing. All right, so let's keep going. All right, now you can hear that in the very background there, you have the Vox chop melody. This is creeping up from the background, so from the depth. The very back of the depth dimension, if you think about the depth dimension, the depth of the mix, you've got the front of the mix, like right in your face, and then you have way in the background, usually created with a sense of reverb or volume or filtering down. Because if you just think about physical space, the further something is away from you, the quieter it's going to be, and the less high frequencies are going to reach you, because high frequencies are going to decay before they reach you. But lower frequencies can go on for a long time before they decay. So, yeah, there we go. So this is coming up from reverb, but I'd rather think of it not so much in terms of a technique like reverb or a plugin or an effect, but rather from a picture, from an image, right? So, or from a physical space. So yes, it's coming up from reverb, but it's really coming up from the back wall, for the back wall or background, right? Try to think in terms of the space of the mix rather than kind of individual techniques or plugins. Okay, so you can hear that the low pass is opening up. Okay, so this is exactly what we were talking about on the drums, where you have the drums opening up. So with gradual evolving sense chords. Chords opening, drum LP opening, and then so the high pass on drums keeps stepping. I don't know why I'm all caps right now. Stepping up. Okay, and all right. So you hear this come much more into view. All right, and this is really cool. This is then we got the bass coming in right here. So this bass, this is going to be HP. Man, I've said this in another video, but I need to get that color plugin so I don't have to keep coloring this shit. All right, maybe I'll do that right now. And maybe I'll do it just while you watch it, just in case you are interested in it, but we got to go max for live. Come on, don't index, just open. Let's go. And then color. Yeah, this guy, right? So if I put that on the master, but then I have to set it up. But you know what? At least I'm putting it on here. All right. And then let's go to color settings. And then we'll do like edit. We'll do red. Here we go. Let's do red for drum. So red for. I'm going to set it up later. But you know what? At least you've seen that. At least I did it. I took a step in the direction. But I don't want to set that all up right now. In the future, I'll have that set up so that we can just move on without coloring. But anyway, so here with the bass, we're getting the high pass. And then what do we have? Drums. Okay, drums are there. So we got, so we have definitely a high pass. And then we have the LP is opening. Okay. This is like a lovely, lovely reverb throw. Just this nice, deep, lush reverb. What's this guy doing? So you can hear right at the end that this is HP up with res. So what I mean by with res is just with resonance, the high pass filter that is opening up on that. And I'll show it to you again because I went really fast on that. And but I immediately heard the resonance on it. But if you just flip this guy around, and basically what's happening, if we just give it a little bit of resonance there, is that it's just right a little bit of resonance on that as it creeps up, which is cool. And so it gives the sound of like a DJ filter because a DJ filter has the resonance on there. You know what? Which makes me think that one of the ways that they could have that Chris Lake did this or could have done is if you go to the DJ filter here, okay, give it a little bit of resonance. Oh, okay. I thought the DJ filter would have a built-in. Look at that. It kind of does. You see that? So, that's kind of cool. So if you have that, so I like that. So when you get to the middle line, you can see how the resonance flattens out. Yes. Maybe I don't think 12 was out by then. But you could certainly use a DJ filter across this whole thing because it starts with the low pass down here, right? And then as you come to the middle, then everything's kind of fully open. And then as you reach kind of towards the end, you start on a high pass up. So that could be, I mean, that's basically what's going on here. But the cool thing about Ableton 12 and the new filter is that you can have that filter, so you can kind of do something like that. But let me play it again so you can hear that high pass with the resonance. You can just really hear like this frequency. If I just turn this guy on and just... like that's getting emphasized in a way that you wouldn't hear if you just had like a standard kind of high pass, right? You would just hear those frequencies going away, but you can hear there's some kind of bump on there to just accent that sound. And what am I doing? Let's go to 1,000 here. It's the default. And there we go. Cool. All right. So then... okay, bass comes in here. This is really important because one of the things that we're going to do is create a map here. And what we're going to do is just do intro. It's going to be intro. Then we'll do intro break. And in kind of what we can call like a traditional tech house arrangement, or what I call the HD2 formula, is the HD2 formula would be like HD2 formula, or even HD3 formula, because HD2 just has 2 drops, HD3 would have 3 drops, and HD just stands for hook drop. So it has, so HD3 formula would have HD2 formula would just have 2 hook drops. This one kind of has 3, but HD3 formula would have 3 hook drops. Anyway, so HD2 though, what we'd usually do is you would have an intro and then you'd move into a section like a bass drop. And a bass drop is just be where you introduce the bass line, kind of by itself, just so people get a chance to move and groove to the music. But at the same time, it gives the DJs an easy way to kind of bring in a track with just the drums and the bass without any hooks on top. And then you would go out into a break here before you then explode into the drop, the first hook drop right here. So this is like standard. But Chris Lake doesn't usually do the intro this way. And it's not like the reason why Chris Lake's tracks are as awesome as they are, right? It's not because of an intro structure, all right? It's simply probably because that's the way that he likes to DJ. The reason why Chris Lake's tracks would do so well is because he makes amazing drums, has amazing grooves, and he picks awesome hooks, and he tells simple stories with those amazing grooves and amazing hooks. That's it. That's what he does. And pretty much every other great producer does the same thing. It's not because of some random fucking intro structure. But here with Chris Lake, what he's doing is he's doing an intro break. Now, the reason why it's in the HD2 formula, again, where you have intro, where it's just beats, and then intro, and then bass drop, where you introduce the bass drop, you want to introduce the bass line before you put the hooks and groove together on top of a hook drop. That's what a hook drop is. It's where you put the hooks on top of the groove and they play together in this epic combination, 1-2 punch of hooks and groove. That's what the listener wants. That's what everybody wants. Everyone wants to dance to the groove, and they want the hook on top that they can listen to and get excited about and sing along with, right? Catchy over dancey. So the whole idea is that we have to introduce the bass in some way before we get into the hook drop. Because again, the hook drop is just hooks over groove. And in the HD2 formula, we introduce the bass here in the bass drop. And then that's what allows us to come over here and then drop the hooks on top, because people already know how to move and groove to the bass line. And so when you throw the hook on top, they're not overwhelmed by too many new elements. And what Chris Lake is doing here is that in this break, he's introducing the bass line so that the bass is still introduced before we get into the hook drop. And so it's the same idea. It's just introducing these elements, the hooks and the groove, kind of separately and in different ways, so that when they finally play in full hooks over groove in HD1, hook drop 1, the people are ready for it and it drives the dance floor crazy. All right, so let's see what Chris Lake's doing here. So you can hear the bass right here, here, nope, and nowhere else, just right here. Here is where he brings in the bass line, and he's bringing it through a high pass, and also high pass. Is he doing a high pass down? Let's see. Yep, you can hear a little bit of a high pass down, and then we have the vocal chop melody right here. Same thing, still coming up from reverb. So from the back of the mix forward, coming much more into view here, so that the bass coming forward and the vocal coming forward are the things that are going to play right here in the drop. All right, so is there anything else? Let's just check off the most basic ones. So we've got the beat. We've got the bass, we've got the reverb throw, we've got the melody coming up. What about the chords? See here, right here, the chords just kind of fall out, right? Either a release on the synth or a reverb, but then they kind of stop right here. So it's just this, the whole track just feels kind of suspended as we move towards the hook drop. So what does Chris Lake use to build tension here? Let's see. So you hear the drums opening. You can hear the drums verbing, meaning they're growing, the space is growing. So right here, they're pretty dry, but right here, you can hear a definite reverb on there. You can hear like a bit of a, kind of, it sounds like a snare roll, like almost sounds like a wide snare roll. Coming up right here. Let's see. So we got this guy, and then let's go like this. Yeah, definitely snare roll. So this is going to be LP up. Definitely sounds wide. So what else is there? You can hear this kind of like deeper tonal riser, effects tonal riser, deep, in the background right around here. And then I'm just going to also put a white noise riser as well. So because you can hear some white noise. Now it might be part of the whole kind of tonal riser as like a layer, but I'm just going to separate them. So we have white noise riser. And so let's just kind of go like this and then like that. Cool. And then okay, cool. And then okay, so you can hear that this right here, and let's go to our edits right here. And I'm just going to color this one yellow because it's got to be a pop color, because this is the pay off moment here. Cool. You can hear the drum sounds following the vocal. Do do do. Right, so a little syncopation right there up to the offbeat hi-hat, and then that clap that just hits with the vocal, and then you're just kind of left suspended there with the vocal going into the drop. So I'm just going to cut all this stuff off. Boom. And then we get into hooks over groove, what the people want, what they love. All right, so we got to get that right here. This is just a Vox chop. We're just going to write dry right here because this is now dry. Right, so listen to the difference right here. Far away, this, close. All right, so we got the beat and the bass. Now I'm curious if the drums developed at all from the intro. And one way we can see, just for fun, is I can grab these drums right here, pop them underneath the drop. I can loop around there. Let's go get a utility plugin. So util, and I'm just going to pop this guy into here, and I'm going to flip the polarity on the left and the right channel. So that's effectively taking this whole kind of waveform and just flipping it upside down. So for example, the peaks right here become valleys, and the valleys down here become peaks. And so I bet, and yeah, so it'll just take out the drums. Now, some of the top frequency stuff moves so fast that it's kind of hard to phase that out. So that might be why we're hearing that. But another cool thing that we can hear is the bass, just all by itself down here. So you can literally see how this thing was made. So this is a D sharp and a D sharp, and then this goes up to, it would be the 5th probably. So this is going to be an A sharp. So the interesting thing is that it's completely missing the 2nd harmonic. And again, if you just want to look up like the harmonic series, the harmonic series is just basically a saw wave. And so you just would take this value right here, which is going to be about 38 hertz-ish. It's a D sharp. And if you just multiply that by whole numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up, you're going to get the harmonic series of this D sharp note here. But more importantly, what I'm telling you is that a saw wave includes all the harmonics of the harmonic series. And so if we have the just the odd harmonics, right, then we have a square wave. And so right here, so if we count this as 1, so that's about 38 hertz. If we multiply that by 3, well, if we multiply that by 2, it's about, what would that be? 40 minus 4. I'm sorry, that'd be 80 minus 4. So it'd be about Jesus Christ, 76. So right around here, we would expect to see a 76, a harmonic if this was a saw wave. But this is not a saw wave because we don't see the 2nd harmonic. But if we multiply that by 3, so 40 times 3 minus 9, or is that minus 9, minus 6, 40 times 3, 120 minus 6, so 14. What is this guy? So about 1/14. There you go. See? So 40 hertz times 3 is going to be about 38 hertz times 3 is going to be about 100 and whatever it is, 115-ish. And so you can see right here. So we're missing the 2nd harmonic, but we've got the 3rd harmonic. So if you multiplied this by 4, we would expect a harmonic right here. If we multiplied this by 5, we would expect this harmonic. And I'm not going to do the math, although that would be a little bit easier, wouldn't it? So 38 times 10 would be 380 divided by 2. 38 divided by 2, 15 plus 4 would be 19. So 190. So is this 190? Yeah, just about. See, so this is the 5th harmonic. You can hear me doing math in my head. But yeah, see, so this is a square wave. So for example, if I wanted to recreate this, I would start with square wave. And, you know, if you just listen, you might hear the square wave qualities. You know, it's a little bit more tubular, a little bit more hollow sounding, a little less rich sounding than a saw wave. But if you can't identify the waveforms by ear, then you can always just look at the harmonics. And taking away the drums here, which we can do in this case because Chris is playing all the drums over here, we could just phase invert them out and we can get a good look at what's going on in the bass. All right, so there's the bass, nice little square wave, nice little saturation on that too on top. All right, cool. And then we're going to get what is going to be called, not is what is going to be called, but what is called, at least in my little language, is a lift. All right. And so I wrote CLT over here for chill lift transition. So this first 8 bars, this drop right here is going to be a little bit of an A section, B section. We'll break that down too. Why not? Why not? I already mentioned it. So just planning ahead here, we got the A section, B section, all right? But this right here is we're lifting the energy in the second 8 bars. This whole first 8 bars is just what I call a chill section. We're just chilling. We're just enjoying the moment. What do we have? We've got what we want. We've got the hooks over the groove. We've got catchy over dancey. All right. And so we're just chilling. All right. This is the new normal. And then in the next 8 bars, we want something that just kind of lifts the energy. And what lifts the energy is this nice vibey thing. It's the chords that come in. So check it out. So here's going to be pretty much dry, just vocals over drums and bass. And then here we're going to get the chords coming in. All right. And so these are just, we're going to do a lift and this is going to be chords. All right. So then we'll just go ahead and bring these guys in. Now you can hear that that is coming in with a low pass because then it starts to open up. So LP up, up. Or another way to say it is just opens, right? The synth opens, the filter opens. All right, let's bring these drums over here. Let's bring the vocal over here. One thing that's interesting here that I'm noticing is that the vocal and the chords are both down the middle. Is there anything wide in here? Almost everything is down the middle. Let me just check this out. There's a little bit of stereo width to the chords, for sure. It's probably like a light chorus or something on there. But... and a little tiny bit of dimension on that vocal, but the meat of the sounds, right, are basically down the middle. There's nothing crazy wide here. I'm just going to do something weird really second. Wow, I don't even know what the heck I just said. Really quick. So I'm going to go get the imager, Ozone's imager here, and I'm just going to push those chords wide. The low mids wide. So for example, this is just Ozone's imager, which allows you to image things in a multi-band way. But if I just isolate those chords, okay, so we got those nice chords down there. I wonder if I push this. So I just wanted to do that so you can hear what I was kind of hearing, which is like, things are really down the middle. If I turn Ozone on and off right now, then you're going to hear the chords and the low mids especially just go wide. And when I turn it off, you'll hear it just kind of collapse down the middle. Now, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just something I'm noticing. But I'm curious if things start to get added or wider to just create a bigger stereo presence in the mix over time later on, because this is just the beginning of the track, you know? And so I'm just curious. But check this out. So I'm going to start with the Ozone on right here. And just, just listen. You don't have to listen to anything crazy right now. Just listen to it. Absorb it. As soon as I turn Ozone off, so just watch me. And you're going to feel the mix collapse inwards towards mono. All right, so let's keep it on for now. And then I'll turn it off. You'll feel it collapse. And I'll open it back up, turn it off, and I'll collapse back down. Check it out. Cool. And yeah, nothing's better or worse. If anything, the more things you have mono, the more translatability it's going to have in clubs, because a lot of times clubs are mono systems. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Just something interesting. All right. And then what else we got? All right, cool. So here, Chris Lake is using the pickup melody to pull you into what? The B section. All right, cool. So let's talk about A section, B section. So pretty simple. Most people are pretty familiar with the A section, B section, but it's just where you kind of divide a drop into 2 sections. The A section here is going to be, really quick before I say that, is when you have an A section, B section, what you could do is you just want to be able to boil an A section or B section down to one simple word or phrase. That's how simple it can be. And I'll even say that's how simple it should be, right? Because then you're making decisions. But for example, this guy, I would just do A equals Vox, chop, melody. That's what defines the A section. All right. And then what defines the B section? So I'm going to write B equals Vox lead, right? There you go. So that's just the main vocal. But really, A section, B section, you can really just boil down, reduce to, define as what is the A hook, what is the B hook. And if you keep it that simple, then it's going to be very easy to connect with and remember your song. And if you get it too complex, it's going to make it harder to remember the song. And what that does is it forces you to make sure you're picking things that are cool. You know, like this is really cool. And listen to how simple this is right here. It's just drums, bass, and a vocal little chop hook, right? And is the chop hook anything crazy? The only thing that's happened is that if we boil the vocal melody down to the simplest component, it's just bouncing back and forth between two notes. Bam, 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 bam. So it seems like they're going back and forth between A sharp and D. So, and then all that's going on is that's a passing tone. So there's a little tiny note that plays between the, should probably do it on this guy, but so, let's go get piano. And we'll just go to here. And we'll go to the vocal melody. Sure, I'm just going to pick the first one. So we come over here. And we just go, let's get rid of this. So, make sure we turn on the listen. All right, so, my ears are not being accurate right now. Let's see. So if I delete this real quick. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that it was hitting on the beat right here. I thought it was playing tricks on me that it was playing on the 16th before the next beat. Okay, so da da da. Yeah, I should have known that. So da da da. So that's just playing. Bum. And then go down to D, right? Ba. Ba. Cut. But this, in its simplest form, is what the hook is all about. And then how does it start to become a little bit more interesting? Maybe I'll move this up. And I'm just going to turn this guy up a little bit. Let's see. Okay, let's just put some saturation on there. And here we go, saturation. Let's see. Okay, so there we go. But this is in simplest form what's going on. That's nothing crazy. Anybody could play three notes, right? Okay, but then what's the next layer of it? How does it become interesting? So ba-na-na, right? That's a little more interesting. And what is that? That's just a passing tone. So ba-na-na. So we'll put it on the 16th. All right, and then let's duplicate this. Nothing crazy. The only thing that's happening, this is a passing tone too, right here. It's just happening on this little beat rather than as like a 16th right there. But then if we duplicate this, okay. Okay, then what? So what is that? So it looks like they're going up to C. So let's play it from here. Okay, so what's that? It's just another note here. All right, now this note has like a specific name. I think it was kind of like a free neighbor or something like that. I forgot what it's called. When you go up and then back down, right? So this is a passing tone because you're passing through it. But this one you're kind of going up and then down. And that also kind of points to some melody writing rules sometimes. You know, passing tones are classic. This is a passing tone. This is a passing tone. Also other little, I shouldn't say rules, they're kind of like guidelines or things you can experiment with would be like go up before you go down before you go up. But here is like, you're jumping up, you're creating a gap. This is called a kind of a filling the gap idea, where you're creating a big gap and then you fill that gap as you move back down. All right, let's see. Let's keep going because I know that it switches up at the end. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So where's duplicate? Okay, there we go. Right at the end, there was something a little bit more fancy. All right, so whoa, my voice. All right, let's see. So let's just map that real quick. So I'm just gonna come over here. Let's loop around this. So it still goes to C, and then it sounds like it goes. So let's try that. And then A. So okay, let's see. Wait a minute. Oh, whoops, this needs to go up here. Oh no, did I just move all the A's down? Dang it. All right, hold on one sec. Okay, there we go. I just moved all the A's down. So let's move this guy there, and then we'll go to here. There we go. So let's play from here. Okay, let's find that note. Let's see. It sounds like a D. Okay, cool. So there we go. So if I just move this over here real quick. So cool, something like that. And then
This place I've known, right on the edge of
Yeah, just wanted to make sure this note was right. But okay, getting back to the point is this, that you can see that how simple the basic idea is. We're going from A sharp down to D, okay? And it's just two notes, right? Just two notes that you can find that you like, right? And then we have just some embellishments, right? We've got this passing tone, we've got this passing tone, right? That repeats. And then at the end of the 4 right here, so after 4 bars, we just get a little extra embellishment on this note right here. And then this whole thing basically repeats until the very, very end. So at the 8 bar mark down here, we get this extra little embellishment, right? So little small embellishment right here, right? Bigger embellishment, same little thing right here, and the biggest one right there at the 8, which is following what I call a punk structure. And the punks are just moments that happen, structural moments that happen usually at the 2, the 4, the 6, and the 8. And the most important ones are going to be the 4 and the 8. That's exactly what happens. We get these little embellishments here in the melody at the 4 and the 8. It just makes sense. Okay. And so there we go with the melody. Then we come over here with the chords. And then I'm going to turn off that piano. Cool. And see what else. Cool. And I feel like I got way distracted with that. But the whole point is just keeping it really simple, right? When you have the A section melody, it's just very, very simple. Because again, you want to write a hook that just stands out. And this stands out, but it's nothing too complicated going on. Right. And then with the B hook, this is just the main vocal. But you can see that the A section, B section here boils down to just this main vocal hook over the drums and bass. And then this B section boils down to the essence of it, right, is just simply the main vocal over the drums and bass. All right. And when you can see that, keep that higher level clarity, then you're going to be making really good music that really just sticks and connects. Because people just get to kind of zoom in on that moment, just live in that moment, and that connect with that hook that you're writing. All right, cool. So there we go. We got hook drop 1. We got the A section, B section. We even have a CLT story here where we lift with the chords. And then the chords abruptly go away. But listen to what's happening there. It's the same thing that's happening back here. You can hear that chop melody. I need to actually move this over here. You can hear that chop melody coming up from reverb, coming up from behind, from the back wall. That's what that atmosphere is here. Okay, you can hear the chords come up too. Cut, then probably low pass up. I'm just going to write creep up, right? So, and they kind of start here. I just want to put that gap right there because it's just so abrupt. Okay, so same move. So we get the LP down on the drums. Same move that happened over here, right? So when we're over here, where are the drums, the beat? So right here, right? We should actually write this down right here. So we'll do LP down on the drums. But the same thing happens through this section. Okay, there's some really subtle low-pass filtering going down on the drums because we're moving into a lower state of energy. And that's just a way to just ease the listener in, just moving them down over there. Very simple. And then we'll just do HP, LP because these are filtered from above and below. What about the bass? Let's see what happens at the bass. Okay, bass is just in there, high pass. So we'll do a nice little HP as well. And then, so this is just the main vocal. We've got the reverb vocal coming up from behind. They got the chords on full display. Well, I guess not. They're still filtered. Definitely not on full display. So we'll still do LP. So LP. One thing I want to point out with the drums is that there's no clap. And so what's cool about this is when the clap, oh my gosh, when the clap comes back in, then it's going to feel like a resolution, right? This is a really cool and very subtle thing to do. Just opening things up here in the break, but taking away that clap. When this comes back in, it just adds that pop, that aggression in the drum groove again. But here, we're slowing things down, no clap. Very cool. All right. Now we're starting to get to some good stuff here. Well, of course, all this stuff is good stuff, but some fun stuff you can say, right? So over here, even fancy stuff, like this guy right here is very, very straightforward. Just hook over groove, right? But here, now we're getting some little fancy production stuff. Okay. All right, so here we're getting a really nice pumping reverb throw, which is something we got over here, but since it didn't happen in the drop, we don't need the pumping. We don't need the pumping necessarily here too, but it just creates that overall vibe where everything is responding to the groove, to the kick. So we got that pumping verb throw. Okay, and then of course we have the main vocal chop melody there, and then cool. So this is going to be, I'm just going to call this hook drop 2. Because this is the second one. Why not? We'll just call it hook drop 2. But here we've got the chords in there. So okay, so a couple things, and let me get a little bit of a... Okay, so let's just kind of chop these guys down, the beat and the bass, and I'm going to color these yellow because what Chris Lake's doing here is what I call a false start. Some people call it a fake drop. I don't really like that. A false start to me is like where you just do something, you don't give everything away. So here, so there's no drum, it's just kick, and then there's that open bass, which is very similar to a move that now everybody's making, but Chris Lake, especially in Toxic, really, I think, kicked that off. Let's see if we can pull that up really quick in Apple Music. Let's see. So if I go to Chris Lake, see if we can find Toxic quickly. I probably should have typed in Toxic. Toxic. There it is. So we come over here, play this real quick. Okay, here we go.
I'm ready. If I were you, I'd take them.
All right. So that thing right there. And then this is kind of a similar idea. All right. Now, the thing about a false start is you have to have a recovery, something that pulls everything else back in. So if we listen, and really it's nothing crazy. It's just that little syncopated bass note. Boom, ba-doom. Right. And it just allows you to easily land on that snare, and the snare just brings all the drums back in. That's it. Nothing crazy at all. But so what this right here is called is an elevation, and we got to add this to our little document over here to review. We've got elevations, I'm going to do elevations, false start right there. And cool. Because we're going to come back to that for sure. Definitely a big point in this track. All right, but what are the elevations from HD1 to HD2? Well, we have the false start, and then we have the chords, and then we have the pumping reverb throw. Okay, we didn't have that over here, right? So this is what arrangement is all about: the development of the hooks over time, right? And seeing how the track progressively builds an energy and excitement over time. And this is it. We're not seeing crazy things come in. We're seeing Chris Lake being very resourceful and strategic with the good things that he already has and making those things do all of the work, right? There's nothing really in there that's doing the work other than the core elements. So if I play right here at the beginning of HD1, hook drop 1, it's just vocal chop over drums and bass. That's it. If I play right here, it's a much different, more exciting moment. Okay, that's an elevation. But other than that, if I go to the 4, pretty similar. Okay, now there's another thing in here that needs to be pointed out, which is the ride. So we've got a ride here. And a nice little ride on top. Okay, and that is another elevation, but it's elevation in the drums. So ride. Okay, so we got the false start. This I would call the chords is an elevation in the hooks. Pumping reverb throw, elevation in the hooks. Ride, elevation in the drums. All right, because remember, arrangement is storytelling with the two main characters of hooks and groove. And so if you're going to do all these things that kind of stand out, why not do them to the main characters? We don't have to get a bunch of crazy new things. We don't get a crazy bunch of new effects. It's like use what you got. Now, you could do obviously whatever you want. We're just taking a page from what Chris Lake is doing in this specific track, but it's really good takeaways because it's a really good look at being very resourceful and feeling really confident about the hooks. And if you don't feel confident about the hooks, rather than going and reaching for a bunch of other stuff to stuff into the track so that you can feel better about it and hope that it sounds, quote, full, just work on the hooks. Get those things amazing because you can see how he's just going all in on those two main characters, hooks and groove, and making these things be what's doing all of the work. All right. Okay, definitely some new chords and different instruments that are probably playing these chords. I'm just kind of lumping them all in. Like when I listen to this one now, we get this nice kind of cool slow attack movement or something like womp, womp, womp. It could be the same sound though. Nah, see, different sounds for sure, but I'm just going to kind of lump them all under chords, you know. But this one in particular is very non-intrusive, right? It's able to just sit below the vocals, hang out in the low mids. We don't get a lot of this kind of mid-rangey stuff. As amazing and beautiful as that sounds, maybe it would work as the track develops. But right now, we're just keeping it chill. We're just doing a little bit of a lift with the chords here that sit and are tucked underneath that vocal. Wow, that pumping reverb is still going. I thought it was going to kind of fizzle out, but he's keeping that flat as an atmosphere throughout the track or throughout this drop. So the question here is we've got 8 bars, then we've got 8 bars. There's no lift in this case, right? So this is just plowing straight through, letting all that energy from the pumping reverb throw and all the momentum that was built up here, that exciting moment right here, he's just riding all that momentum, all that energy through. But what I want to know is there anything that he's going to do in this little section right here that is going to start pulling us into the next section, right? So let's see. The only thing I would say is that these chords just open slightly. That's it. Like if we listen back here, maybe right here, you can hear them just getting a little bit more full, right? They're just a little bit more full. So it almost sounds like opening slightly is both from a high pass and a low pass, because not only do I hear a little bit more mid-range coming in, I also hear a deeper kind of mids, low mids and lows coming in. So this is HP and LP opening. Okay, so abrupt stop. Now we're going to get this nice little O impact, we'll call it, I guess. Why not? Nothing else is coming to mind. So here we have the O. Okay, so the pumping reverb throw continues. We're doing a similar move, just now the context is more dramatic. We're breaking it down to the kick hat. No clap. Okay, but we're going into what I call just a little strip section. But he's going to kind of gain things down, so it's kind of a strip that settles in energy. A strip section is a kick, bass, and hook usually. That's it. That's what a strip section is. You're stripping things back. But a strip for me really happens exactly where Chris Lake is doing it right here. It's when you start to get into the main break and build, which is what this section is, the main break and build. You got the main break and then the main build. The strip is a really good way to start just settling the energy from the drop, because what you're doing is you're taking away a lot of the top end elements, the high frequency things that add a lot of drive and excitement to the track. You take those away and you're just left with the kick, the bass, and then some kind of hook or atmosphere. In this case, it's mostly atmosphere. And another thing is that he's keeping the hat in, which is totally cool, right? Why not? So it sounds like, I just want to see what's going away in the drums. Like you could totally see something going away. I guess not. Like, geez, okay. A little bit, there's a little bit of gaining down, it seems like, barely gaining down. And we can even see it in a spectrum analyzer too, so we can just kind of see where it starts and ends. So see, kick and bass are just kind of hovering around -6. And if you follow my kind of mixing method, you'll know that like a lot of times the low end and the drops especially are going to be hitting above -6. But in this case, like this isn't, you know, a club banger, you can say. Like this is also like a very almost poppy track in a way because of that vocal. And when you're going in that direction, if you're going more on the pop side and more on the vocal side and less on the kind of club, drums, bass, groove side, in other ways, oh my God, I cannot talk, but in other words, if you're going to go more on the hook side rather than on the groove side, then you can sacrifice the groove because you need headroom if you're going to put the hooks that loud. And so in this case, it's just mixed a little bit more conservatively, a little bit more pop, a little bit more towards hook focus rather than like a club track, which would be groove focus. If you're groove focused, you're going to be smashing, and Chris Lake will smash down in the low end as well, you know, but in this case, a little bit more reserved in the groove and the mixing as well. But that bass is still monstrous. Yeah, so just barely gaining down over time, just barely, all right? All right, so kick hat, this is low passing down, LP down. Okay, so then we're going to get chords right here. And one other thing I want to mention is look at this. If we look at the hook so far, look at this. It's been full blast vocal, full blast vocal. Okay, here we got a little bit of break, a little bit, but we're teasing the vocal. So the vocal's there, but just a little bit further away. But then, so this is just 8 bars. So 30 seconds of vocal, 15 seconds of vocal, but a little bit further back. Here we've got 30 seconds of pure vocal. All through here, another 30 seconds of vocal. And then another 30 seconds of vocal. So through this whole section, we've got 16 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, 16 bars, 16 bars, which is a lot of bars. And most of it, the only thing that's not quite vocal or full blast vocal is this little 8-bar section. But right here, you know, this is 40 bars-ish. I'm not even going to try to do math right now. I did enough math earlier. So 32 and then, 48. Yeah, 48 bars of vocal over about a minute and a half of vocal. And so when we get over here, and this whole section right here, actually 24 bars, no vocal. You're getting a break from the vocal, right? Main break and build. Breaking things down? Yes. Breaking things down by getting that vocal out of there for a little while, giving the listener a break from the vocal. Okay, so here we switch into a high pass. So let's go HP. Oh, Command D or do HP. You can still hear the hat in there a little bit. And this makes me think that Chris isn't really using a filter. You might be using, maybe, but maybe more like a shelf, like a really aggressive shelf, because you can still hear the highs. The highs are still in there, but they're very low. Some of the highs are very low. Bass is still in there, so we're just going to do HP on here. The pumping reverb is still going, the pumping vocal atmos is still going. And then we got the chords coming. Now this whole section right here is just going to be basically the chords coming up. So and so, yeah, one thing I want to do is just help you make sense of what's going on here. Is like from the drop, he's just breaking things down to the lowest energy point of the track. And that almost always happens in the main break and build. You can think of the main break and build as working down to the lowest point of energy and then going back up to the highest point of energy. So you can think of it as lowest to highest, right? That's one little kind of mental model, little framework that you can think of with the main break and build. And the cool thing in the waveform is you can literally see that down movement and then the up movement. And before we were talking about moving in stages and moving in evolution. So this right here is a step down. It is a discrete step down, right? So when we go from here to here, that's a discrete step down, right? And when we go from here to here, that's going to be a discrete step down. Right, so that's what we were talking about right here, discrete steps down. But then what about the evolving nature of things? Well, things are evolving. We saw a little bit of gain automation going down on the low frequency stuff, but there's also a low pass going down on the drums. Right, so that is your gradual evolving thing. And then another thing is the O impact kind of dissipates over time. Oh my gosh. Okay. And there you go. That's pretty much everything that defines the downward movement through here. So we're stepping down, and then we got a lot of things, the low pass, the kind of like thing dissipating, the impact going down to settle the energy. And then over here, another step down discrete step down from the drums, going into the lowest energy point of the track. All right. And then what we're doing is he's introducing these chords right here, and that is going to start moving us back up. All right. So, and look at this. Can you see that discrete step up? Right? You can see this stuff. And hear it. And right here, this is the guy that's going to be the gradual evolving thing. Okay, a little bit of a sub under the chord. Maybe I'll just like put that right here. I'll just do like sub under chord. I should really actually make that its own thing, because then you can really see that step up. That's a little bit of a step up. If you add a sub, it's like, boom, the track just got more weight, right? It's not the low energy point of the track anymore, right? Think of the difference in the club. Feel this section without a sub. And then imagine the feeling in the club on the feet in on the dance floor when the sub drops. All right, so we got a nice little sub. And that's stepping things up. You can hear things really starting to open with the drums and then the chords. So right here. And then by the time we get over here, okay, so this is LP up for sure. And then we should do HP LP because it's filtered down as well. Okay, open chords, open faster, right? We still have the vocal atmosphere. We've got the sub, we got the bass, we got the beat. All right, cool. And so breakdown, start to build up. And now we're going to get hit with the vocal. All right, so bringing in the hooks. So this is going to be, I'll put this on vocal main here. You know what? Since that little reverb throw is still going, and this is a completely different vocal in terms of like the melody, we'll just call this vocal bridge like that. That way we can keep the Atmos going, the vocal Atmos going, which is on the main vocal channel. And so there we go. Okay. So all of this is still going. This is still going. Sub. Okay, we got a snare roll coming up. So right here. So let's just have this guy come up right there, like that. Okay, you can definitely hear a white noise riser coming up towards the end right here. Peaking out, taking us to the top of the build. Also, there's like a crash roll or something. Yeah, I'm going to put that in. A little bit of a crash roll. Crash roll right here. So, not kind of your traditional crash roll. Traditional crash roll would be like, you know, but this is just, it sounds like just a bunch of crash hits playing. Okay, we got a kick roll. So, I'll put that as its own channel, even though, of course, it would just be probably on the kick channel itself. So here we go, and this is breaking down to eighth notes. Oh, a little bit before. Okay, and then cut to the payoff. So, and I should actually have this cut to the clap. So where's the beat? Right here. So we'll go like this. This will just be a clap. Color this yellow. All right. Okay. Okay, so this right here is a crazy verb throw. I'm just going to go like this. I'm just going to be very lazy here and just duplicate this over. And then I'm going to, just going to move this down right here. Cool. And so this would be like E, or technically it should be chemistry, like that, right? Atmos, because it's the reverb, or whatever they're doing, probably reverb frozen, just kind of going. Okay, now we have a completely new, this is going to be Vox HG3 rep. So, and on the edge of losing hope, according to my friend Mo, which sounds about right. Okay, so let's break this down more though, because let's just make sure we got everything. Okay, because this is, once again, we're breaking down and then we're building up over here. All right, so let's make sure we got all the building stuff. So we got that main vocal coming in. We got the chords. We got the kick, bass. I think the bass is in there. I can hear the sub. Okay, drums. Yep, drums are high pass, low pass, up. So that's opening things up, moving us towards the drop. Chords are opening up. So much more open. Okay. Okay, and then of course you can hear that bass roll down. So cool. And so this just kind of like pitch bend down. Bam. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now this clap is also like a clap bomb. So I'll just write bomb on there. Again, never the right word to say on YouTube, but whatever. Okay, now let's get the drums in here. So we got drums, we got bass. Where's the bass? Right there. And then okay, let's see if we can see the sub. Okay, there's the sub. By the way, this is a saw wave. Because look, this is going to be a D. It says D sharp. It's probably a D. Yeah, definitely a D. Earlier I was talking about D sharp, but I feel like the track is a D. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is this is a saw wave. So we got this note and then an octave up times 2, right? We take this guy. It was about 38 hertz we were looking at before. Multiply by 2. We get 76. And what do we have right here? Boom. Right there. Right around 76. Yeah. So this is a saw wave harmonic. Before we were looking at a square wave harmonic, but this is the second harmonic that's missing, or no, I should say missing. It's certainly not missing because it was an intentional choice to use a square wave. But I just wanted to show you that, hey, that sub is a saw wave. And look at that. You got the second harmonic. All right. So, but where does that sub start to go away? Let's see. So right at the end, you can see it kind of just not be there as much anymore. We just say like gain out and gain down right at the end. Now, before I was telling you about pickup melodies. Now, this new melody the HG3 vocal, the rep right here, has a pickup, right? So we have pickup, and this is pulling you in on the, right? So on the, and then edge of, now this thing formants up over time. Formant is just formant shifting. So even in Ableton 12 now with the auto shift, if we go get the auto shift, I don't understand why Ableton is indexing so much. Like, this should be on the hard drive, but whatever. Let's go. Where are you? Auto. Oh, it's 2 words. So auto shift, this guy. This right here, the formant. If you just gain this up over time, not gain it up, but automate it up over time, oh my gosh, like this. I think it goes on for a little while. So that's basically what's going on. You'll hear it like here. So it's starting low for sure, lower. And then just kind of going up. Right, so it starts low and goes high. Now that is formant shifting. That's not pitching. He's not pitching it because the pitch is staying the same, but he's changing the formant of it, which makes it sound like it's going low or pitching low and then pitching high. But it's not pitching. It's staying the same pitch, just changing the formants, little upper harmonics in the voice. Okay, interesting. So you can hear this also new kind of vocal percussion. So I'm going to change this to, not change it, but Vox percussion. I don't know why I wrote the whole word out, but so I'm just going to map out a little bit of it so you can hear it. Sounds like it's going C and D, so something like, what are we at, 16ths? So it's something like this. I'm not going to map out the exact rhythm, but maybe a little bit of it. It sounds like it's kind of just playing 16th now. So let me just see. Oh. Yeah, so something like this. And then I think it comes up around here. And then it moves back down here like that. So something like that. And then I could copy this over and then copy this over. Something like that, yeah. And then hopefully I could just end it on the 8 bar somewhere. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just cut this first one off because he's doing a little bit of a false start like before. And then I'll just loop this that way. So that way we get the full kind of picture of it. Like that, okay? Okay, so hopefully you can hear that, but maybe what I could do, just in case you can't hear it, is I will just find it with the EQ. So Hear that? All right, so that's what I'm talking about right now, just in case you couldn't hear it. Okay, so this little vocal percussion continues. Also, I just want to point out the false start here on the drop. It wasn't as dramatic as what happened before. Okay. So same thing though, that here we have the false start. And so just kick. And then everything kick starts with the clap. Okay, cool. So then we get into this. So this is really what we should have dove into, whichever word, right away. But the thing that Chris Lake is doing here, and this is really the biggest thing about this track, the biggest thing, is that when you're going out of your main break and build, the expectation for the listener is that we're going to go back into what? All right, so we have this one. We have this. What's the expectation of what you're going to go into at the peak after the main break and build? Building all this tension, building all of it. All right, so imagine going like this, right? So... Or let's see, let's go like this. I wonder if that can... Okay, so imagine that, right? Now, that's kind of what you expect, but Chris Lake is not doing that. And, but he knows he's not doing it because he's just simply delaying the payoff, the ultimate payoff. Now, a lot of times producers want to do this kind of thing. They see this being done and they want to do it. And in Chris Lake's case, it's flawless because especially of what happens later, it makes, he's quote, breaking a rule, but he's at the same time following a higher level rule, if that makes sense. And I'll break that down, but he's breaking the rule in the sense that he's denying expectation at the biggest moment of the track. And so this is like, without question, a bait and switch. Right? Because you set, you have to understand the way that arrangement works is that when you put hooks over groove here, that's what people like. That's what they want. And so when you build all this tension, what are people expecting? Right? They're expecting the thing that you have teased them and primed them with the entire song. They're expecting you to go back into here. But he's not doing that. He's going into a new section. Now, how do I know that he knows that he's denying expectations? Because of what he does through this section, is he eventually delivers what you want in a really dramatic way. Really dramatic way. He denies expectations so that he can exceed expectations. Right? And so that's a much higher level and a way deeper understanding of arrangement to be able to pull this off rather than, a producer who says, oh, well, Chris Lake didn't give him the second drop. So now I'm not going to give the main drop anymore. I'm going to completely change it up on him. Right? That's not what's happening here. What's happening is, yeah, he is doing the bait and switch, but he's then ultimately paying it off in a massive way. And this is what, and he knows that, like, you're not going to make this move unless you understand that at a really deep level and on how to make it work. And Chris Lake, everyone sees his streams. Like he's got definitely a deep understanding of all this, but he's also going to feel it, right? And he's going to see thousands of people reacting to this as he plays tracks in the clubs, festivals, whatever. So yeah, it's not just a simple bait and switch. It's a conscious and deliberate denial of expectations to reset them up, to pay off expectations in a much bigger and more dramatic way. I really can't think of another track that does this. That's extremely rare. Number one, to see a big bait and switch like that, but two, to then just move into the section that's the ultimate payoff. So this is the biggest thing of the track, without question, is that change up on the listener, and then the rebuilding towards the ultimate payoff, which is going back into the thing that we have been primed for, and we have been primed to be excited for the entire track. He's playing with us, and like that's a really sophisticated understanding of arrangement and how to kind of build expectations and play with expectations. Like, very cool. Very, very cool. All right, sweet. So then, let's see. What does he do? How does he get us there? He denied expectations. Now, this is a cool part, but it's not the main thing. And you can feel that it's not the main thing. Like, it's a cool part, but you can feel deep down, this is not the main thing. This was not what I was expecting. And again, he knows that, and he's going to leverage that. He's going to leverage the feelings you have of what's going on, and then reset you up so that you can finally feel what it is you wanted to feel, which is when you get that main hook over groove, when you get the vocal chop melody. So... And there we go. Okay, and so guess what is going on again? All the same moves that he's been making. Why? Because he's priming you. He's literally training you to expect things, right? And so this guy right way back here, which has been used to, look at the structure right here, right? So if I like maybe color these guys a slightly different color, let's color it like this, and then this, right? Do you see this structure? Like this, and then here it is again, this, and then this. Well, guess what? We're going to get that same thing over here, right? Maybe a little bit shorter, because we're going to be trying to move things faster, get things moving faster towards the end. Yep, so we're going to get into that like right over here. So we're going to cut one of these sections. But that structure of starting this guy way in the background and then moving forward into the dry drop is what we have been trained. It's fundamentally the thing that we have been subconsciously trained, because the average listener is not going to hear this, that background vocal chop. They're just going to, they're not going to be able to articulate what's going on, but they'll feel it. And then that, and since they've been primed over here, right, they'll get it over here. They're going to get it. They're going to, oh, I know what's about to happen. And that's what creates excitement, is that setting up of the expectation and then finally delivering it. So, okay, I think I've moved things around too much. So here we go. Cool. So we can kind of break this out. Like, this is very creative. It's in terms of arrangement. So this is HD3. And if we wanted to, we can kind of break this down into an A section, B section, like this, where you have the A section is going to be that new vocal. And then the handoff to the new section over here is just very dramatic. It's just a very dramatic handoff. And so then we have like, we can call this like a break and a build, and I guess we can. I'm going to do A, B, edit. So the edit between the A section, B section, but like break, build to ultimate payoff, or the not to the ultimate, to the real payoff. This the real payoff. Okay, cool. The thing that we want. So once again, the breaks going down to kick hat. So this is going to be HP. Bass is HP as well, high passed. Okay, this continues to formant up. We still got the vocal atmosphere. You can hear the chords barely start to creep up right around there. So right around here, the chords creep up, gently creep up. Okay, you can hear that kind of tonal riser. I'm pretty sure it's like a tonal riser, like deep with verb. Very like a detuned saw kind of sound. Okay, you can hear the snare roll in there. Let's just get this guy. Okay, it's no longer wide, so I'm just going to get rid of wide over here. So he's just doing different things in the track, but I'm just going to put wide here. Yeah, again, very wide snare roll over here. Very interesting. But here, no, this is just down the middle. I think the tonal riser that I'm hearing, I keep getting confused with the wet vocal chop melody in the background, but that's okay. Okay, the bass is opening a lot. A very yeah, that's it. That's all we need. A lot. Okay, so here we're getting this kind of unstable rep on the vocal. And you can hear a fast auto pan on there to create even more tension and instability. Fast auto pan. Okay, we're getting a kick roll. Again, this is even more dramatic than what was happening back here in the main break and build, what we thought was the main break and build. So here we have a kick roll, which is going to be... Okay, the snare roll pitches up towards the end. So let's do like pitch up. And the kicks is going to be playing eighths. And this also high pass up and out. There's kind of like this O impact right here. I'm just going to throw it in because why not? You can definitely hear some risers coming up in here, pumping. You can hear the crash roll coming up too. So again, just way more dramatic than what was going on over here. Like, you know, he built tension into this, denying expectations, but then it's like, well, here's the real thing. Here's the real thing. This is what you wanted. So I'm going to let you kind of simmer in this for 15 seconds, and then I'm going to build up to what you really want. I'm going to make you freaking wait for it. Because how long did we wait for this? Right? Look at this. Check this out. We were just talking about how he played this vocal for like, vocals were playing, you can say, for a minute and a half. And for a minute and a half, this vocal chop melody played for a minute. Lots of vocals through here. And then he took them away for 45 seconds. We got a new vocal section. And then here we're building tension. So now how long has it been since we got that vocal, right? So let's see. it's this whole section. So how many bars is it? If I look on the bottom left, that's 48 bars. That's a long time. And so we got the vocal playing for 48 bars. And then we didn't like the main vocals, we could say. And then we could say like no main vox. And so he's just making us freaking wait for that main vocal right here at the end. And then we finally get it. So main vox. So like this. And then this is going to be like main vox. Vox. There we go. Okay. So there you go. So maybe I'll color this like a gray to make it really gray and ugly. So here we go. All right. And so what else do we have? What other tension things are being in there? So we've got almost everything. We got kick roll, snare roll, crash roll, risers, high passes. Chris Lake is the master of building tension. He pulls out all the freaking tricks. And so let's see what else happens. Okay, breaking it down into 16ths or no, 30 seconds right here. So these are 30 seconds, right? 30-second notes. Okay, and then same thing as before, breaking it down to the clap. So on the drums, so what we could do is just go like this. This is going to be clap. And then here. Oh, that's so crazy. All right, so that's all coming up, but let's get this. Okay, and then very dramatic. Again, this is the, I got to go back to our sheet. So elevations, so we got to go from HD2 to HD3. And I'm just going to put a little B there for, why not? I don't really need that. Okay, and then we have the bait and switch. Okay. Cool. All right, and then boom, and then the most dramatic false start yet of the entire track. Like this is really all the things that we talked about in this video coming together. The dial, the progressive elevations. All right, so let me show you what I'm talking about because, okay, so we just go straight hooks over groove. Right here, we've got the false start for the first time. Okay, so that's cool. A little bit of an elevation, a little bit of a false start over and above what was going on over here. But then we get the most dramatic one over here, but it's not just an elevation anymore. It is, but it's so much more than that because of what he did right there. It's the like this moment is the resolution of the bait and switch, and it's the most dramatic moment of the most dramatic, what's it called? False start. So there's so much going on in this moment that was set up beforehand. A lot of times I'll describe tracks as jokes because at the highest level, you've got the punchline of the track, which is right here. This is the punchline of the track. And everything that happens before it is the setup for that punchline because that's how a joke structure works. Why'd the chicken cross the road? That's the setup to get to the other side. That's the punchline. All right. Same with the track. A track is just I wouldn't even say more sophisticated because you can, if you're looking at like comedy theory, you could for sure talk about sophisticated setups. But, there's a lot. Like, there's a lot going in here to set up that moment so that, like, it's explosive, it's got a dramatic false start, and it's the payoff to the bait and switch. We've been primed all along to kind of want that moment, and he finally gives it to us. In the most dramatic way in the track, So very simple track, like in terms of hooks over groove, like what hooks are being chosen over what groove. But in terms of the arrangement and pulling something like this off and being able to set it up properly, like that's just pure mastery. Like no other way to say it. So, yeah, I'll definitely love this one. All right. And let's see what else is going on, because it's not the end. We're just getting into the payoff, the ultimate payoff, the real payoff. Okay, so let's get rid of all this here, because we just want to make that visually striking as well, right? Now, one thing I was telling you before is that Chris Lake's melody, in terms of like the verse, that has a pickup melody. And while Chris Lake isn't using that vocals pickup in the way you could, like if you're going to remix this song, I would highly recommend doing that. Like, you know, you just changing up the arrangement a little bit, but I'd experiment with using this pickup as something that pulls people into a drop, like a payoff moment. Although at the same time, you got to ask yourself, does that really give you the payoff kind of vibes? I'm sure it could. Let's see.
It was the darkest place I've known, right on the edge of losing hope, until you pulled me out so I am off the ground. It was the darkest place I've known.
I think so. I mean, you can really make anything work, you know, like, yeah, for sure. You can make anything work. You just got to try it. That'd be my first thing to experiment with, is what would it sound like if I used that as the payoff, and to figure out how to make the B section or something with the vocal chop melody stand out as well, because that's just such a key moment and part of this track. Okay, so this is what's really cool. So here we have nothing. But you can hear the same thing, like that's a false start, and the recovery is the same thing that's been used before, which is that little bass hit right here. All right, which is open. And then I think this is the most open the bass has been. Let me just get rid of this here. And then, okay, and then let's bring this up to the drums there. Okay, we've got a clap bomb, so I should really create a new channel for this here. So let's just do like clap bomb, and we'll just have like a nice big clap bomb right there. I guess we'll color it the effect color. There we go. Move this guy down here or so. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, we've got the ride. Let's bring the ride over here. Okay, obviously we have the vocal. Anything else special? The bass is definitely the most open it has been, I think. It's funny. Listen to how small this drop sounds in comparison. Compared to this. But there's no atmosphere, nothing like that. It's just the hook over the groove. It's just, that's it. All right, a little bit of a riser down there. Okay. Banana, and that's it. And then again, just a little bit of a false start here. So we'll just go like this and get rid of these guys. We can move the ride down here. Bass, kick, bass, and then we'll just color these yellow so they pop, pop it up. Okay. Okay, ride is still playing. You can hear the ride. Jeez. It sounds like the ride is kind of playing what the bass is playing a little bit. Like, he's definitely playing a weird rhythm. It's not just your typical kind of offbeat. You can hear sometimes on the downbeat, like. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's playing with the bass. So this guy, let's go like that. And this is just going to be HP. Very nice. Okay. Awesome. Man, what a track. What a vibe. Like, that's what I love about this track is like the vibe. Like, it's not hard to create, but it's, I just like when a track has just a solid, cohesive, strong vibe. Okay. And so, the biggest things about this, track are again, that kind of, what we wrote down over here. This right here is just a little bit of a technique I wanted to kind of point out, to you. Maybe it's a little bit deeper than a technique, right? It's not just a technique, it's more of a principle. Is like when you're thinking about manipulating energy levels, there's two different ways you could do it. You could like discreetly step down or step up, or you can gradually evolve things. And you can hear that both of these happening in the track one, especially what we looked at when we're breaking things down, building things up, breaking things down, building things up. You could hear those two things. And, but really, these are the two things that, stand out for me in this track is like those progressive elevations. So when we go from here in the false starts, so that's just straight in, this guy right here, a little bit of a false start here, just a very dramatic. All right, but that's progressive, right? It's like what elevations mean is this one is elevated above this one over here. This one right here, and then that one is elevated above this one over there, and it's progressive because they get progressively more and more bigger, you can say. All right, but so from HD1 to HD2, we got the false start, but this time the false start was just kick and bass, and vocal. I think. Let's see, is it vocal too? Yeah, it is. Okay, and then this is only vocal, right? If we get over here, and then everything comes back in, and then we got that kind of clap bomb. But this right here is just like really where the elevation is, where you just make it super dramatic, where you just cut to the vocal. Okay, and so this is a really cool one. And then finally, the bait and switch moment is like hard to pull off, but he knows what he's doing. And so he purposefully, denies expectations only to exceed them later. And give you what you really want. And with the most dramatic false start. There you go. All right. So extremely sophisticated, this right here. Just that section, pushing, building again, getting into that. And that's the standout for me. But again, just love this track, love the vibe. And then finally, the last thing I want to take away, probably the first thing I want to put up here is the simplicity and confidence and reliance on the simple hooks. I should just say hooks, otherwise it's like simple twice. All right, you got groove, And the groove's intricate, right? It's definitely intricate. And then a little bit more intricate. And then we have the hooks, which is going to be, this is just drums and bass. But then the hooks are going to be like the break vocal and then the vox chop melody. And just completely relying on those. And yeah, so just the simplicity, just some concepts in terms of manipulating energy over time. We also covered CLT stories, A section, B sections, but this stuff is right here is for me what it's all about. Like, these are the coolest takeaways for me. The progressive elevations with the false starts, and then the bait and switch that exceeds expectations at the end with the most dramatic false start. Like, that's the punchline, right? And then maybe the last thing here is like setup and punchline, just as a concept. Because that's kind of, this might be one of the best examples of the ultimate punchline here. Like, so one of the best examples of making you really wait for the punchline. A track is just a setup and a punchline. Okay. And so I guess that's one word. Can be one word. But that's it. Those are my notes. I'll put this down below in the description somewhere to be able to access it. And yeah, if you got your own comments about this track, leave them down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll see you in the next breakdown. Peace.